The first time Commander Vexar saw a human, he thought the reports were exaggerated. The Terran stood barely 6 feet tall, muscles lean rather than bulky, his brown hair messy like he'd forgotten to comb it before being dragged into the galactic tribunal. His name was Marcus Grant, and he was handcuffed with titanium bands that had been triple-checked because of what happened last time. Vexar stared down at him across the sterile white room, tapping an iridescent claw against the datapad. "State your designation," Vexar demanded. "Marcus Grant," Marcus said, blinking up at him like he had just rolled out of bed and was mildly annoyed someone had interrupted his coffee. "You are charged with inciting insurrection against the Zorthan occupation force on planet 82 Delta," Vexar said, voice flat. Marcus smiled, but it wasn't the cocky grin Vexar expected. It was tired, wary. "Yeah, I guess that's what you call surviving." Vexar arched a brow ridge. "You detonated 5 military supply depots, sabotaged 2 communications arrays, and personally led a group of untrained civilians to reclaim a garrison armed with plasma weapons. Alone, with no formal training." Marcus shrugged, the chains clinking. "We watched a lot of old movies, figured it out." Vexar leaned back. The reports had said humans were resourceful, but this was bordering on the absurd. He decided he needed to understand how. "You will demonstrate your methods under controlled conditions." Marcus narrowed his eyes. "What if I say no, you will be encouraged?" 2 guards stepped forward, but Marcus didn't move. He sat there, quiet, calculating. Vexar felt a shiver of unease. He had interrogated dozens of species, but something about this human's calmness gnawed at the back of his mind. Marcus was transported to a controlled environment, a simulated battlefield. Vexar and his officers sat behind a transparent barrier, monitoring every move. "Release the subject," Vexar ordered. The guards uncuffed Marcus and pushed him into the center of the arena. Automated drones, armed with stun rods, began advancing. Marcus didn't panic. He dodged the first strike, grabbed the rod out of the drone's hand, and used it to disable the second drone in a move so fast that several officers gasped. "He is improvising without prior programming," Vexar said. "He is adapting," Colonel Zorthan muttered. Marcus ducked, rolled, and dismantled a third drone using its own parts. Within 3 minutes, the arena was silent except for the whirring of broken machinery. He looked up at the observation deck, breathing hard. "That all you got?" Vexar stood slowly. He realized Marcus wasn't just surviving. He was learning faster than the simulation could keep up. "Terminate the exercise," Vexar said. Later, in the debriefing room, Vexar sat across from Marcus again, this time with a different kind of caution. "You were not genetically enhanced. You possess no cybernetic modifications. You are not even in peak physical condition." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Thanks, I guess." Vexar leaned forward. "Then how?" Marcus sighed, running a hand through his hair. "You ever been backed into a corner, Vexar? No backup, no plan, no way out. You either fold, or you do something crazy enough that it works." Vexar sat in silence, recording every word. The first chapter of the new Galactic War Manual was drafted that night. Never annoy a human. But the galaxy didn't learn fast enough. 6 months later, the Zorthan fleet attempted to annex Earth. They expected immediate surrender after orbital bombardment of a few cities. Instead, they found themselves facing an enemy that refused to die properly. Marcus, now a field advisor, stood at the command tent in the ruins of what had once been downtown Dallas. His right arm was in a cast from a fall 2 weeks earlier. He refused to stay behind. "General, we can't hold them off much longer," Lieutenant Jenna Carr said, her voice tight. "We don't need to hold them off," Marcus said, scanning a battered map. "We need to make them think we're everywhere at once." Jenna frowned. "But we're down to 200 fighters." "Exactly," Marcus said. "They'll expect us to act like a cornered animal. Instead, we act like a swarm." That night, using broken drones, fireworks, and some very questionable engineering, Marcus and his people made it appear as though 10,000 fighters were launching a counterattack. The Zorthan commanders, convinced they were walking into an ambush, retreated. "Unbelievable," Jenna said, watching their ships peel away into the sky. Marcus just leaned against a shattered wall, pale with exhaustion. "They always overthink it." But the cost was high. Marcus collapsed 2 hours later, feverish and barely coherent. Doctors confirmed he had a fractured rib that had gone unnoticed, now pressing against a lung. He was hospitalized for 5 weeks. Recovery was slow and painful. Marcus hated every second of being bedridden, but he followed every directive. No lifting, no running, no stress. When he was finally cleared to walk without assistance, he found Vexar waiting by the hospital exit. "You again," Marcus muttered, adjusting the sling on his arm. "You have altered the course of interstellar military doctrine," Vexar said. Marcus blinked. "Sounds fancy." Vexar handed him a thick datapad. Effective immediately, every military force in the known galaxy is required to study this. Chapter 7, Never Annoy a Human. Marcus flipped through it, grimacing at a rough sketch of his face under the title. "Great," he muttered. "I'm a cautionary tale." Vexar watched him carefully. "There are some among us who believe you are dangerous," Marcus chuckled dryly. "I'm dangerous because I don't quit," Vexar hesitated. "There is a delegation requesting your attendance, a tribunal. They wish to understand your species," Marcus groaned. "More questions?" "Yes," Vexar said. "They are afraid." Marcus sighed heavily but nodded. "Fine, but I'm bringing Jenna. I'm not doing this alone." The tribunal was held on a neutral station orbiting a dead star. Representatives from 200 species attended, each more colorful and bizarre than the last. Marcus stood at the center podium, Jenna at his side, both looking distinctly unimpressed by the grandeur. A tall, crystalline being named Quarix spoke first. "Explain," Quarix said, "how your species can survive conditions that would annihilate others." Marcus scratched his chin. "We're stubborn, we adapt, we don't follow the rules, and when someone tells us we can't do something, that's usually when we figure out how." The tribunal murmured among themselves. Another representative, a spindly creature named Yelvorn, leaned forward. "Is it true that one of your kind once survived exposure to hard vacuum?" Marcus grimaced. "Yeah, not me though. Guy named Travis lost some toes." Jenna added, "We're not invincible. We get hurt, we die, but we push through it. That's the difference." Quarix tilted its head. "You are dangerous because you refuse to accept defeat." Marcus nodded slowly. "That about sums it up." The tribunal recessed for deliberation. Hours passed. Marcus and Jenna sat in a side chamber, sipping terrible station coffee. "You think they'll ban us from space?" Jenna asked. Marcus shrugged. "Maybe, or maybe they'll finally learn not to mess with us." When the verdict came, it was simple. No species shall initiate hostilities with humanity unless absolutely necessary. Marcus and Jenna were escorted back to Earth with official apologies from no less than 18 governments. Vexar met them at the landing pad. "You have changed everything," he said quietly. Marcus offered a tired smile. "Wasn't trying to, just wanted to survive." Vexar extended a hand. Marcus stared at it for a long moment, then shook it. From that day forward, every military manual, every training course, every interstellar policy included a mandatory section. Chapter 7, Never Annoy a Human. And somewhere, deep in a dusty archive, Marcus Grant's name was etched in a language that would outlive stars, not as a conqueror, not as a hero, but as a warning. Marcus tightened the strap on his battered rucksack and stepped off the transport ramp onto the cracked concrete of Outpost Theta 9. The air smelled faintly of ozone and scorched metal, a scent he was starting to associate with anywhere the Zorthans had recently occupied. Jenna followed, her boots crunching over loose gravel. 2 alien officers waited by the perimeter fence, both tall, one with translucent skin that shimmered oddly in the sun, the other covered in tight gray scales. Neither seemed thrilled. "You are Marcus Grant," the translucent one said, antennae twitching. "That's me," Marcus said, adjusting the sling on his arm without wincing. "I am Commander Silvrek. This is Strategist Thon." Thon, the scaly one, gave a curt nod but said nothing. Silvrek motioned toward a squat building near the edge of the compound. "There is a situation." Marcus followed without asking questions. Inside, the air was cooler, but a low hum vibrated through the floor machinery running harder than it should. They led him to a small observation deck overlooking a barren training field. Below, a group of Zorthan soldiers in gleaming armor were clustered around a series of strange metallic crates. "We recovered these devices from your planet," Silvrek said. "We assumed them to be primitive munitions. They are not behaving as expected." Marcus leaned closer to the glass. "You tried to open them." "We did," Thon said, speaking for the first time. His voice was raspy, like gravel sliding over stone. "The devices began emitting heat and sound signatures inconsistent with any known weapon." Marcus frowned. He recognized the crates. "Those are barbecue smokers." Both aliens stared at him. "It's for cooking meat," Marcus said. "Low and slow, you smoke brisket in them." Silvrek blinked rapidly. "Brisket, cow meat," Marcus said. "Takes about 16 hours if you do it right." Thon looked back at the field where several soldiers were poking nervously at the crates with long poles. "We assumed it was a delayed explosive." Marcus snorted, then winced, pressing a hand to his ribs. "You guys tried to disarm a barbecue pit." Silvrek didn't look amused. "Explain the heat surge." "They probably left the burners on. It's just propane." Thon stepped away, muttering something under his breath. Marcus turned back to Silvrek. "You called me out here for this." "There is more," Silvrek said, leading him down a narrow hall. They entered a secure lab where a single human device sat under a containment shield, a beat-up industrial blender. "We found this artifact in a civilian shelter," Silvrek said. "It activated upon scanning. The containment field was necessary." Marcus rubbed his temples. "It's a blender." "A weapon?" Thon asked, stepping into the room. "For making smoothies," Marcus said. "Fruit drinks. You put in bananas, strawberries, maybe some yogurt and blend it into a drink." Silvrek's antennae twitched again. "It produces sonic disturbances when activated." "Yeah," Marcus said. "Because it's loud." Thon folded his arms, his scales clicking softly. "Your species manufactures domestic devices that mimic weapons." Marcus shrugged. "We like our kitchen appliances aggressive." Neither alien seemed reassured. After an awkward silence, Silvrek gestured toward another door. "There is an additional matter." Marcus followed them into a medical bay where a cluster of Zorthan doctors hovered around a display. A series of images floated in the air, showing the inside of a human body his own, judging by the familiar fractures. "You healed," one of the doctors said, turning to face him. Her eyes were a deep violet, no pupils. "Yeah," Marcus said, "that's what bodies do." The doctor pointed to the images. "Your rib was displaced, your lung partially collapsed, you should have expired." Marcus shrugged again. "Lots of rest, antibiotics, breathing exercises." Silvrek leaned closer. "You received no regenerative treatments, no nanotherapy. Just some good old-fashioned human stubbornness," Marcus said. The violet-eyed doctor exchanged a series of rapid clicks with her colleagues. "We wish to study your recovery further," she said. "You will submit to additional scans." Marcus glanced at Jenna, who had remained near the door, arms crossed. "Do I have a choice?" "No," Silvrek said. 2 hours later, Marcus lay inside a cylindrical scanner while alien techs adjusted settings he didn't understand. The machine thrummed softly, a sensation like ants crawling over his skin. "You are exhibiting unusual scar tissue patterns," the doctor said from the control booth. "Not unusual for us," Marcus said. "We get scars, part of the deal." The machine beeped sharply. "Your bone density has increased near the fracture site," the doctor said. "Adaptive remodeling," Marcus sighed, "means the bone grew back stronger." There was a long pause. "Your species modifies its own biology. Through injury, not on purpose," Marcus said. "Just happens." Thon entered the booth, arms still folded tightly. "You adapt without external intervention." Marcus yawned. "Yeah, welcome to Earth." Hours passed. By the time they released him, the twin suns were sinking behind the jagged horizon, painting the sky a bruised purple. Marcus sat on the edge of a loading dock, sipping from a battered canteen. Jenna joined him, tossing a package of rations into his lap. "They think we're mutants," she said. "Good," Marcus said. "Maybe they'll leave us alone." Jenna peeled open her ration packet. "Doubt it. They're more scared now than ever." Silvrek approached, moving with the stiff gait of someone unused to delivering bad news. "There has been an incident," Silvrek said. Marcus groaned. "Of course." Silvrek hesitated. "An unauthorized team attempted to replicate your battlefield tactics. They suffered catastrophic losses." Marcus stood slowly, every joint protesting. "What did they try?" "They dispersed their forces thinly across a wide area. Without communication cohesion, they were overwhelmed." Marcus rubbed his eyes. "They missed the point. It's not about numbers. It's about making the enemy doubt what's real." Silvrek seemed genuinely puzzled. "Doubt?" "Yeah," Marcus said. "Fear, confusion, you make them second-guess every move." Thon joined them, his expression grim. "Our forces are not trained for deception." "Then you're gonna lose," Marcus said simply. Silvrek stiffened. "You will instruct them." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "I thought you were afraid of what we might teach you." Thon's scales shifted color, a subtle sign of discomfort. "We have no choice." Marcus stood, tossing the empty canteen into a bin. "Fine," he said, "but I'm doing it my way." It took 3 days to organize the first training session. Marcus insisted on using real terrain, the broken outskirts of the abandoned city nearby. At dawn, he stood before a battalion of Zorthan soldiers, all gleaming armor and wary eyes. "No armor," Marcus said. Murmurs rippled through the ranks. "You want to learn how to move like humans." "Lose the crutches." Silvrek and Thon watched from a command tower, faces unreadable, the soldiers stripped down to light fatigues, looking awkward and exposed. Marcus paced in front of them. "First rule, you are never where the enemy thinks you are. You move fast, you move quiet, and you hit hard. Second rule, if you're caught, you don't die screaming, you make sure they regret finding you." An officer raised a hand hesitantly. His skin was a deep blue mottled with silver. "What if we are injured?" Marcus smiled thinly. "Then you crawl. You bite. You make noise somewhere else so your buddies can finish the job." The training was brutal. Marcus pushed them into broken buildings, forced them to navigate rubble fields without comms, made them carry simulated wounded for miles under simulated drone attacks. By the end of the first day, half the battalion was limping. But they were starting to move differently, lower, faster, more unpredictably. Jenna watched from a rooftop, arms folded. "They hate you," she said when Marcus dragged himself over at sunset. "Good," Marcus said, sitting heavily. "Means they're learning." The next morning, Thon confronted him by the supply depot. "You are destroying their discipline," Thon said. Marcus wiped sweat from his forehead. "No, I'm giving them survival instincts." Thon's eyes narrowed. "Your methods are unorthodox." "So's war," Marcus said, walking past him. 2 weeks later, the battalion faced a live exercise against a veteran Zorthan assault unit. From the observation deck, Silvrek and Thon watched as the trainees disappeared into smoke and rubble. The assault unit moved in textbook formation, tight clusters, overlapping fields of fire. Within minutes, their ranks broke. Phantom attacks struck from alleys, rooftops, sewer grates. The assault unit collapsed into disarray, firing wildly at shadows. By nightfall, the battlefield was littered with simulated casualties. The trainees emerged from the ruins, battered but victorious. Silvrek turned to Thon, antennae drooping slightly. "We cannot control them fully," Silvrek said. "No," Thon agreed, "but perhaps that is the point." Marcus limped into the debriefing tent, Jenna at his side. "Next time," Jenna said, tossing him a ration bar, "you teach them how to barbecue." Marcus bit into the bar, grimacing at the taste. "One miracle at a time," he said. Marcus swatted a mosquito off his neck and cursed the swamp. The training had moved south, into a humid mess of tangled vines and ankle-deep water. A thick mist clung to the ground, and every breath tasted like mildew. The Zorthan soldiers, stripped of their heavy armor, sloshed after him in clumsy lines, their boots sucking at the mud. "You sure this is necessary?" Jenna asked, brushing a strand of damp hair out of her face. "They need to learn terrain isn't their enemy," Marcus said, scanning the horizon. "It's their ally if they stop fighting it." A few meters back, Silvrek struggled to keep pace, his translucent skin blotching purple with exertion. Thon, somehow looking even more uncomfortable, had acquired a long stick and was using it to poke at suspicious puddles. Marcus led them to a clearing where a massive tree had collapsed, its roots exposed like a giant twisted hand. "Circle up," Marcus said. The soldiers formed a wide, loose ring, awkward but trying. "You're going to set up an ambush here," Marcus said, pointing at the fallen tree. "You have 20 minutes. Thon opened his mouth, but Marcus cut him off with a raised hand. "No questions, figure it out." He and Jenner retreated to a nearby ridge to observe. The Zorthans hesitated at first, but soon they were crawling under vines, digging shallow pits and fashioning crude snares from vines and fallen branches. A few of the younger ones even smeared mud on their faces. Jenna pulled a battered notebook from her pocket and scribbled something. "Making notes?" Marcus asked. "About how they learn," she said. "It's weird. They're logical, but once they stop overthinking, they're almost playful." Marcus watched a soldier gleefully rigging a tripwire between two trees. "Told you, instinct beats protocol." 20 minutes later, the ambush was set. Marcus signaled the mock enemy team forward. Within seconds, chaos erupted. Nets fell, pits swallowed unlucky feet, and the trainees swarmed from the fog like wild animals. Silvrek's mouth opened slightly, a rare show of genuine surprise. "They have learned unpredictability," he said. Marcus nodded. "Took a swamp and a little humiliation, but yeah." The exercise ended just before dusk, the swamp turning gold under the sinking sun. Soldiers limped back to camp, muddy and grinning. Some carried bruises, a few sported shallow cuts, but none complained. Later that evening, Marcus sat by a makeshift fire, an old metal barrel filled with crackling branches. He peeled off his damp boots and examined the raw blisters on his feet. Silvrek approached, his hands clasped behind his back. "You could have simply issued instructions," Silvrek said. Marcus grunted. "Wouldn't stick." Thon crouched beside the fire, his scales dull under the flickering light. "Your species has an unusual relationship with hardship." Marcus tossed a twig into the fire. "We hate it, but we need it." Silvrek watched the flames dance up the sides of the barrel. "Explain." Marcus leaned back on his elbows. "Pain teaches faster than comfort. Every scar, every failure, it all builds up, makes you tougher." Jenna poked the fire with a stick. "We don't enjoy suffering, but we don't waste it either." The fire popped loudly, sending a shower of sparks into the night air. "We have observed," Thon said slowly, "that humans exhibit accelerated psychological recovery after trauma, not always, but often." Marcus shrugged, wincing as his ribs pulled. "We don't have a monopoly on resilience. Other species bounce back too, we just happen to be really stubborn about it." The conversation drifted into silence. The swamp hummed around them, a living chorus of insects and unseen creatures. Around midnight, a medic named Draylin approached, carrying a portable scanner. "You require another evaluation," Draylin said, antennae twitching. Marcus groaned but stood up, stretching carefully. "Fine, let's get it over with." Jenna tossed him a bottle of water. "Try not to scare them this time." The medical tent smelled sharply of antiseptic. Marcus sat on the examination table, peeling his shirt off to reveal a network of healing scars and stiff muscles. Draylin passed the scanner over his chest, frowning at the readout. "Bone regeneration is proceeding," Draylin said. "However, there is elevated scar tissue along the intercostal muscles. Means it'll hurt when it rains," Marcus said dryly. Draylin hesitated. "You are aware that further physical strain could cause structural failure of the repaired areas." Marcus nodded. "Yeah, doesn't change anything." Draylin set the scanner down. "Your cardiovascular system exhibits elevated stress markers. You require more rest." Marcus swung his legs off the table. I'll rest when the work's done. Draylen looked genuinely baffled. You prioritize mission objectives over biological maintenance. Marcus pulled his shirt back on. Survival first, comfort later. As he left the tent, he found Thon waiting. You are reckless, Thon said. Probably, Marcus said, walking past him. By morning, the swamp training ended. They relocated to an abandoned mining town carved into the side of a canyon. The dry heat was a brutal shift from the swamp's humidity. The trainees grumbled less now, moving with a quiet efficiency that hadn't existed a month ago. Marcus set up a simple drill: infiltration without detection. The goal was to retrieve a bright orange flag from the center of the town without setting off the noise traps he had rigged. One by one, the Zorthans attempted it. Most failed. Alarms blared, lights flashed. But instead of freezing or panicking, they adapted. They changed their routes, distracted the sensors, even used debris to block motion detectors. By late afternoon, 2 squads succeeded. Marcus stood at the edge of the canyon, watching the sun dip below the horizon, casting long shadows across the jagged rocks. Silvrek joined him. You have accomplished what we believed impossible, Silvrek said. Marcus shook his head. I didn't do anything special, they just needed permission to think differently. Silvrek studied him for a long moment. You will be returning to Earth soon. Marcus kicked a stone off the edge. It tumbled down, bouncing off the canyon walls. Good, I'm tired. There are many who will attempt to replicate your methods, Silvrek said. Marcus sighed. They'll figure it out, or they won't. Silvrek hesitated. Your kind's ability to endure, it is not merely biological. Marcus chuckled. Nope, it's pure, stupid willpower. They stood in silence as the last light faded. 2 days later, Marcus boarded a transport shuttle bound for Earth. Jenna sat beside him, flipping through a tattered field manual. As the shuttle lifted off, Silvrek and Thon stood on the platform, watching. Inside the shuttle, Marcus leaned his head back against the seat and closed his eyes. You know, Jenna said, they're probably going to write 100 reports about you. Marcus cracked one eye open. Let him, maybe it'll save someone the hard way. The shuttle broke through the atmosphere, stars unfolding across the blackness of space. In a dusty archive deep within Zorthan territory, a new manual was quietly added to the training curriculum. It had only one real rule: if you encounter a human, do not assume. Adapt, retreat if necessary, but above all, never, under any circumstances, annoy one. And somewhere back on Earth, Marcus Grant slept for the first time in months without dreaming of battlefields.